Hello there friends and welcome to today's Sunday Tea Time live stream, live as always from Robin Hood country here in Nottingham, England. And happy Halloween everyone, hope you're all doing well. Unfortunately I've not had time to work on anything Halloweeny this week because I've been working on my 11 Second Club entry all week. But thanks to Double O, regular viewer, there's a Halloween message for you in the kitchen that you'll see later on today. So thank you for joining me today, great to have you here. As always, do come say hello in the chat, let us know who's with us today. Especially if it's your first time here, let me know where you heard about the stream and where you're from. But if you are new to the streams, welcome. My name is Darren and I'm going to stream every weekend here on YouTube. And the streams are recorded so you can watch any parts that you missed or rewatch parts of the stream again to see exactly what I did and which features I used. And the streams are a chance for me to work on some drawing or animation in OpenToonz and Tahoma 2D. And for you to watch along, ask any questions about what I'm doing or about the programs themselves. And today I'm going to be finishing off my entry to this month's 11 Second Club. I can't wait to get that finished and submitted. So I hope you can stick around for that. And to not miss each stream, then do click that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified of when I stream. And keep an eye on my socials on my Twitter, Facebook and Discord, where I share a link to the stream in plenty of time. So you can check what time I'll be streaming in your part of the world. I see we've got a few people here nice and early already. Let's see who's with us today. Let me just pop some music on if I can in the background. Hopefully not too loud, but do let me know if it is. Let me just adjust that volume. Ba, 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 ba. Make sure that's okay. Okay, that's coming through, I think. Let me just check on this. Boop-a-doop-a-doop. And bring that up to a level. So we've got something happening in the background there. Let me know if it's too loud or if it's too quiet or if you want to change the music or what have you. Who have we got with us today then? Nice and early, we've got Natraj. Hello, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us again today. Good to have you here. Munka's giving me a good whee! Welcome, Munka. Good to have you here today. Thank you for dropping by. And we've got Tom again. Hello there, Tom. Good to have you with us as always. We've got Double O with us. Hello, Double O. As I said earlier, we'll see your little Halloween message in the kitchen during the break later on today. Bert's back. Hello there, Bert. How are you doing? And we've got Oreo. Thank you for joining us today, Oreo. Good to have you with us today. Great to have a good bunch of people at the start of the stream. And we've got Blifton. Hello again, Blifton. Good to have you here. Right, so a busy old day today, kinda. I've not got any news to share today, so it's straight into OpenToonz to work on this entry. I've been working all week on it, a few hours each evening, and it's progressed really well. I'm really pleased with how it's gone. We'll take a look at that in a while, and I'll have a quick chat through what I've been working on this week, and then we'll get on to adding the background to complete the animation and then check it in, submit it and see what happens. So before I go any further, if you want to remind me, is anybody else out there working on their submission for the 11 Second Club or anybody that has already submitted? I know that Maria has already submitted hers because she's busy today, so won't have time for any more, so that's been submitted. CW messaged me the other day and his entry has been submitted, I believe, already as well. So I don't know if anybody else has got one to submit. Let me just clean my glasses. I didn't do this earlier, I normally do before I start. I need to be able to see what I'm up to. That's a little better. So how are we all doing today? We're all having a good Sunday. And speaking of Sunday, while it's on my mind, I'll mention it again later. I won't be here next Sunday because I'm out of town for the day. So I was going to stream on Saturday afternoon instead. Same time, but just on Saturday. And I was planning to take a look through the 11 Second Club entries to see what other people have submitted. We'll be too late, unfortunately, for doing marking, because you only get 5 days to do marking of entries. And I believe next Saturday is the 6th. Would I be right? No, next Saturday is the 5th. Ooh. Because originally I was thinking about the following Sunday will be the 6th, so maybe we'll have time to do some marking. But either way, whether we can judge or not, I'll be taking a look at some entries to see what other people have worked on for their entry, to see what ideas they had, the way they presented them, the style of animation. I think that'd be quite interesting to take a look at. Let me just click on that actually. Thank you, Oreo. Any plans for Halloween, anybody? Good question to the gang here. Not for me this year. No plans at all. No parties to go to. No one's invited me. So nowhere to go. No plans. So not even trick or treating. So not this year. It's going to pass me by quite quietly, I'm afraid. As always, as I mention every week, I have got the Discord server open in a separate window. So if you're not already a member, do join us in there and then join in for the chat and to share your artwork or animation for us all to take a look at. Either share it in the live stream chat room, which I'll keep an eye on today during the stream, or into the art or animation rooms, and we'll take a look at that on the stream if you share it during the stream. Otherwise, you may see it next weekend here on the live stream. And we've got Rover259 Wild. Hello there, Rover. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining us. Just check everything's running smoothly. It seems to be going okay here. So, shall we take a look at where we are with this animation, jump straight into that, and get ready to draw that background. Okay, so where was we last week? Fantastic, Rover. Good. Great to have you with us today. Let's jump into the drawing room. And we'll see OpenToonz up here. Do let me know if I forget to move the chat from just here and it's blocking your view of something you need to see. I can soon clear that away to the other side of the screen, or to hide it altogether. Just let me know. So where did we leave it last week, last time I saw you? Well, I'd finished in-betweening the character on the left. This little fella in blue here. So I'd done the... I did the keyframes for both characters the previous week, and then last week I in between the movements, the body and head movements of the character on the left. I didn't add any mouth or face shape movements. It was purely the body moving backwards and forwards, and I got myself in kind of a bit of a routine, which went quite well. It kind of picked up pace during the stream. I think it was on stream for about 3 hours. Cheers. So that was featuring the left-hand character. Now I took a break after the stream and then came back and did the same for the right-hand character. I in between his body movements, and I think I maybe only took 1.5 hours or 2 hours to do that. Much quicker, so I wasn't chatting during the obviously while I was working off stream, wasn't chatting to you, so I could move a lot quicker, and I kind of fell into a bit of a routine, which is part of the reason for doing these streams and entering this competition. We've got our first question from Rover259 Wild. Let me just throw that in for the audience to join in on the chat as well. Trying to import Photoshop files into OpenToonz, but an error sometimes pops up. My reply to that would be yes, it does. It just does sometimes. Photoshop import was improved just prior to the release of 1.6, so I know there were 1 or 2 issues with it, especially with the choice of adding a column for each layer in the Photoshop file versus adding a frame across all the columns. So that was improved a lot before 1.6, so I know it's much better. But I'd be kind of wary of importing a Photoshop file itself. Give it a go. If it works for you, fantastic. But if not, then you're better off to render each layer separately, or each layer at least as a separate image, and importing them one at a time might be the better way to go to import those files. Okay, so I finished the in-betweening for the left-hand character last week. So during the week, what did I do? Yes, I finished off the in-betweening for the right-hand character. I tidied up some of the movements and the end keyframes a little bit for both characters, so now they move a lot smoother. I'm much happier with that. One thing I did differently that I should really have thought about during the stream last week was I was in-betweening in this room, in the drawing room as it's called in OpenToonz. But when I finished my stream and came offline, I started working, and I was working with the full body, and I found myself constantly zooming in and out, trying to fit as much as I could onto the screen. And then I realised I've got the timeline in the way, so I went to the X sheet layout, I think I adjusted the width a little bit of some things, but in this layout, because there's nothing horizontally across the screen, you can zoom into a much larger image, which is easier to in between and to see the whole drawing. So I would say, as a lesson learned for me from working off stream, don't be afraid to use different rooms for different parts of your workflow. It can really help speed them along. So yes, do use the rooms, create new rooms or adjust the ones that are there. And I promise you, you'll thank me if you do. Back to the Photoshop question. Rover doesn't have Photoshop, but Critter. I'm not 100% sure personally if Critter really generates accurate Photoshop files. So I don't know if the issue with Critter not creating the Photoshop file correctly or OpenToonz importing it. I know I tried rendering to a Photoshop file from Critter myself a while back before the latest fix, and it had one or two issues. It didn't always work successfully. So I tended to render out directly from Critter to a PNG file and then imported that. Yep, great tip there, Tom. Thanks for reminding me. So this is something I also did during the week as I was in betweening. Once I'd selected the correct brush and set the size of the brush and pick the colour and that kind of thing, the top left of the keyboard, the tilde key, as you say, to the left of the number 1 key on a UK and US keyboard, changes to full screen mode while your pointer is over the viewer. So give it a tap and you go to full screen mode. And then of course you can zoom in to get a larger image. Tap again to come out of full screen mode, or you can double click on the header of the viewer here to get the same thing, to get that full screen, or you can right click on the background and choose full screen mode from there, or Alt F if you want a keyboard shortcut, and by doing that you remove all of the toolbars and background and gives you a larger screen to draw on, which can be really useful to do. So let's just exit that and go back to standard size. Awkward Penguin, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. How goes the grind? Amazing. I have had a really good week this week. So today is quite casual for just putting in a background. But as always, I kind of want to go a bit further and put in an establishing shot, possibly, if I get time and if I'm in the mood later on. But we'll start off with a basic background first. We'll take a look at how that is later on. So a question from Double O, whose OpenToonz has completely crashed since updating your computer's iOS, trying to download and open a new package file. Ooh, you're on Linux, aren't you then, if you're getting a package file? What to do now? No idea, I'm afraid. I'd love to help. I have seen 1 or 2 questions in different forum, really over the years, about Linux or Linux installs of OpenToonz. Seems to struggle a little bit for some reason. Or people seem to have problems installing it. Never used a Linux machine, so I can't really offer any advice. But I can offer advice for your second question, that you can load animations made in OpenToonz to Tahoma. As of 1.3 Tahoma and 1.6 OpenToonz, yes you can. But, and it's a big but coming up in the near future, it looks like the 2 programs may start to drift apart a little bit. And at some point, you won't be able to. I was talking with the developer of Tahoma this week, and he's having difficulty keeping them up to date with some of the new additions to OpenToonz. So some of the additions won't be going into Tahoma, unfortunately. So it'll start to go a little bit different, and because of that, he may well allow the 2 save file formats to drift apart. But right now, yes, you can. Absolutely. I wouldn't go backwards and forwards too many times, because Tahoma does add extra items into the scene file that OpenToonz doesn't have. But right now I believe you can go backwards and forwards, so do give that a go. Okay, so I'm just going down the list of things, having a chat about what I've done since I last was here, and then we'll have a play of the animation to show you where we are, and then I'll start on the background. So after I in between both characters, I then went ahead and added some facial changes to both characters to try and add a bit of emotion. So I added eye blinks, eye darts, having looking around a little bit, especially the character on the right to show him thinking about what he was about to say. You'll see that in a second. And eyebrow movements to look angry or puzzled or happier, and just to give a bit more life to each of the characters. And then I added the lip sync, and I was going to do that during today's stream, but it's so close to the submission time, I wanted to do some other things and add a background, and I did show the lip sync process on my last entry back in July, so you can find that stream on my YouTube channel if you want to take a look at that process. I am thinking about making a separate Friday video with kind of a speed paint of the lip sync process that I've been using for this, and just put it in the lip sync playlist, but I'm still mulling over doing that and seeing how well it'll come over. So the lip sync is added. However, I only added the lip syncer's mouth over the head shapes. So if I go forward a few frames here to where he starts talking, some shocking drawings of mouth shapes on here, but don't worry about it. They look okay as they start to move, but the mouth shapes are just placed over the top of the head. The jaw doesn't move with it. It's kind of an independent mouth, which is what you see in a lot of cheaper animation these days, most cheaper animations. But I'm considering next time having a bit more whole head movement as the characters talk, depending on the character I come up with, rather than having a simple shaped character as I've done this time. Yes, Double O. Yeah, please do take a look around. I know there's been lots of conversations about this. And if you want to join the OpenToonz Discord server or ask on my Discord server, someone there might be able to offer some suggestions. Give as much information as you can about which version of Linux you're using, and be clear that you're using the latest OpenToonz or the nightly build, whichever one it is. And you never know, someone might be able to help you there. Unfortunately, I can't. I've got no suggestions for that, but fingers crossed that somebody will be able to. Okay, so that was both characters completed at that stage, and I was really happy with how they moved. As I say, we'll see that in a second. So then I moved on to my second idea that I wanted to do, which is to add some thought bubbles above the heads of both characters. And I could have just simply drawn a thought bubble as I've got here, had it appear at the top of the screen with the picture in the bubble, and then disappear by the end, and that one's been a problem. Didn't really even need to have the bubble there. The characters were acting out what they needed to do throughout the whole animation. It kind of adds an extra layer of complexity to the animation. It means also you have to, please do Double O, yeah, please do. It means you have to sort of watch the animation a couple of times to see everything, because you're either watching the characters or the bubbles, I think. So it gives it either a rewatchability of having it watched more than once, or it's too complex by having too much happening at once. So I'm not sure which way people will judge it when they watch it, but it'd be interesting to see the comments that come back. And also, if Ferdinand from Animator Island does his usual review live stream, I was going to ask him to take a look, and I'm interested in what he's got to say about that as well, the extra complexity. And the bubbles I also wanted to animate. I didn't want just static bubbles to appear. So I've drawn the bubbles animated as they rotate around, with each sort of bubble on the outside rotating, and also having each bubble sort of getting larger and smaller and kind of overtaking each other. As they get larger, these extra lines kind of come to the front. You'll see that in a second. So I want to have some movement for that. And also, I want the bubble to appear to float in the air, so I've got a gentle bit of animation of it moving up and down as well as it rotates. There's lots of things happening with that, and the content inside isn't moving much, but there's a little bit of movement as necessary to go from the bat to the man, as you'll see in a second. I'd also have to move the columns around, of course, to make the thought bubbles appear in the right place. Mr. Alon Dan, hello, greetings. Good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Long time no see. I'm just going through a bit of a chat of what I've worked on since the last stream on this entry for the 11 Second Club. About to play it in a few minutes. I think we're just about there on everything I changed. I've also added some colour to the characters. I wasn't going to add any colour into this animation, but I had to add kind of a fill to the lines, otherwise the thought bubble lines would overlap the characters and you'd see them through the head kind of thing as they first come out and when they go over each other. And also I've used a technique where I've filled in the thought bubbles with a plain white colour and used that for a mat to get the Batman character into the bubbles and to attach it together using that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about today's entry. This is the third one I've done this year into this competition, and I've worked on something different each time, and I'm really happy with how this one has come out. And then today I'll be drawing just a very simple background to go with it and then submitting it today. So let's have a look at this. The audio's on. In fact, if I go to the preview and show a larger screen preview, it'll be easier to see. Hopefully the audio comes through okay. Do let me know if not. I am Alan. Frame by frame is kind of what I was working on. It's my preferred way. I have used the animate tool to animate some movement on the clouds. You'll probably recognise that as a smooth movement of the thought bubbles moving up and down. But everything else is drawn frame by frame by hand. A little bit of tracing happening to help keep things the same size. The characters are so simple, just to try and get them moving. I want to concentrate more on the movement in this entry this time, which is why the hands are very simple ovals. They're kind of stick figure characters. So let me give you a quick play of this. Let's see how it looks. Let me turn off, let me hide that chat window first. There we go.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds like Bat and Man, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say them together.
So that's what we've got. Really happy with how that's come out. As I say, I want to put a background in there. There's no context of a background, so I'll draw that today. And possibly an establishing shot with just a static image at the very beginning first. But we'll see what time we have.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds like
right?
Bat and Man, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say them together.
Okay, so unless I see any other small changes I want to make, that's basically it for the characters. I might tone down the colours on the characters a little bit. I kind of wanted either no colour or a very pale watercolour kind of feel to them. I don't want to have them as being solid kind of paint primary colours coming through, because it's supposed to be kind of a pencil sketch feel I wanted for this. But I want to put some colours in for now, so at least when they overlap, there's a solidity behind them. And when I draw the background appears behind them, not through the characters. Tech Draconis, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing? Thank you, Alon. Appreciate that. Really appreciate that. I've been trying to. I've been hearing your voice in my head, especially when I was drawing the keyframes for this, and I've not done it as much as you would be telling me to, but I've tried to push it further and go further. And some of the keyframes I did with the characters, even just this one leaning forward, I've tried to make it lean forward a bit more than I would normally. Tried to make them change the direction from leaning forward to backwards and that kind of thing. Tried to stretch them out a bit. I think I could push it a bit further still. I think I can. But it's kind of something I'm really trying to get to work on, and I can hear you every single time I'm drawing a keyframe saying, push it further, push it further. And I didn't do as much as I could have, but it's okay. It's still a stage better than it has been in the past. So we're getting there. I think I'm getting there. Thank you, Oreo. Appreciate that. I'm really happy with this. Really, really happy. And I don't want to spoil it with a background that's too busy or too much in your face, or, you know, just taking your eyes away from the characters, which is why I'm planning to make it a very simple pale grey style background in a second. But when's your background, deadline, Tetraconis? How long have you got left? Yes, you are. You're literally inside my mind as I'm thinking about it. Honestly, I can hear you saying, push it further, go to the extreme, exactly that. And I just wanted to try and break out of a very simple two heads speaking, because the audio clip is simply two people just chatting. And I've seen this TV program that the clip came from, and I'm sure it's literally two chaps just standing there talking to each other. So to make it feel cartoony and make it more interesting to look at, you've kind of got to push it a little bit. Okay, let me put that audio back on then. There we go. Okay, so we want to do a background. So I've already got a single level that I threw in a while back called background BG, which is a vector level. And I created a vector level for no reason, and sometimes I like to throw a vector level in with a single colour or gradient colour across it. So I'll start with the vector level, and it's available then for me to add the simple colour to it. Thank you, appreciate that, Alan. Appreciate that. I've got a long way to go, but I'm much more comfortable with this one than I was with the previous couple. But each one I'm learning something new, I'm pushing myself each time. I've got more movement this time. I can do more movement again. But I was watching your Halloween video that you shared, and if none of you have seen it, do let me know in the chat now. Happy to share a link of that. I put it in last week's stream description, so you can find it there as well. And I was watching the characters that you created there and how they moved. And because I was in the middle of this animation, I was thinking about what I was doing compared to what you do in there, and it really made me think again about trying to push it a bit further next time. So we'll see what we can come up with the next time I enter, which won't be unfortunately until next year. With Christmas looming, it's likely to be February at the earliest, if not March again, but I'm looking forward to getting involved in another one of these. Four to 5 weeks, okay. Yeah, 4 to 5 weeks, 2 months, numbers of weeks can feel like a long time when you first look at it. But as you know, when you start drawing and animating, the time flies by very quickly. As I said, this past week, each evening, I've done a little bit towards this to get to where we are today. It's taken quite a while to get here, but well worth it. Really happy with it. Okay, let me push that to one side. And so my plan was, thank you, Tetrachronis. Appreciate that. I do. Really do. Yeah, so my plan was to have these two characters, even though I've drawn them in very simple shapes, and not wearing any costume or anything. I'm kind of imagining one of them as being like a guard on a watchtower. So I wanted to draw kind of the top part of the castle, the battlements that they're standing on top of, as though one of them has just seen the Batman. So I'll draw them in the background here, and then if I get time at the end, we'll draw a wider shot, a single image, very simple image of the whole castle with just kind of a silhouette on the top to show where they are. So let me grab a brush, hit save. Before I go any further, as I like to do, let me run my backup tool. Make sure that's running here. Look in the OpenToonz folder, start monitoring. Then if I come into here and save this, and then look at the bottom, I should see another line appear to say that we've now backed up this version. So it'll continue to back up as I work through the program. So if I lose anything goes wrong, I can roll back to a previous version. Okay, so I don't know if I want to use the straight lines or draw it all by hand just yet. I'm feeling that straight lines at first might be better. I want a grey shade for the background, nothing too dark, as I say. You can just throw a line on there. It's quite thick, a little bit smaller. Okay, happy to have a bit of variation at some point. But if I turn off pressure first, then it'll use only the thick line for the first few lines here. And make this even lighter, but I can adjust the colour afterwards anyway. Okay, let me add a couple of guidelines on. I don't want the main background here to get in the way of the characters, so the top part of the castle area I'll mark off with a ruler mark here, and the bottom part a little lower. Okay, if you do have any questions, do pop them in the chat. I'll take a look at that as we're working through today. It's currently 3:30. I don't spend too long on the background here because I want it to be pretty simple, not too detailed. So let's get started with this. I will be colouring this in, so I might be better off having a simple rectangle shape and adjusting that actually, rather than drawing it by hand. So I've added that in. I can then press, do I want to fill it in with the same colour? I think I do. Then we'll make this much lighter. And now draw the darker lines over the top. I think might be better. Duplicate that actually. Changing my mind a few times about this. Let's fill that in with a lighter colour. Grab the control point editor, and if I hold control, not used this for a long time, hold control and I tap on it, I can add a new point. And just throw on some of these spaces in between. So a longer gap, then a smaller gap, then a longer gap, then smaller, longer, smaller. Something like that. And then in between, I could bring that down and bring that down. And I know that using either the plastic tool or the control point editor is when you're most likely to have crashes in OpenToonz. So I'm taking my life in my own hands by adding these in. They don't need to be super neat, so I'm not bothered about them being really horizontal or vertical. In fact, the less neat the better, I think, really. That's exactly the plan, Rover, exactly the plan. So now if I grab the brush with pressure on, I'm then just going to add a few simple brick lines on here. Turn up the smoothing, so I don't want them to be too wobbly. Make this bottom size 1. Get rid of these rulers now, don't need those. Bring this one down, it's quite thick there. I know I'm trying to make these lines deliberately not neat, so I do apologise for anybody that is upset by lines that aren't very neat. Bring this away from here actually. make this line a little bit lighter so it doesn't stand out quite so much. So again, I want it just to be vague and in the background, a little bit kind of blurred almost, and really just fading into the background on there. Now later on, partway through the animation, we zoom out, so I want a little bit of background behind this. I think I will add another few vector layers for this background. I think is probably the best thing to do. So I'll for now keep on the same timeline. I'm tempted to create a sub X sheet for this, but I won't do just yet. We might do later if necessary. So let me add another vector level. So that allows me to put that behind it, and then I can do the hills on a level behind the column behind the main wall. In fact, let's call this. This one is the hills. Actually, BG wall and then BG hills. And then behind that we'll have the sky, but that can be on the same level as the hills, I believe. Yeah, they are quite similar, Tetraconis. You're right. Might be worth adding some variation to that, so I might come back to that. I kind of want to get it thrown down quite quickly to start to see and get a feel for what's out there. Yeah, no, thank you, appreciate that. As I've said before, this is why we're on the stream, so you can share your ideas with me, make suggestions, give me any tips that you've got. So the final frame is frame 408. So if we right click on this first frame I've just added for the hills, and then choose repeat from the edit cell numbers menu, I can then repeat this up to frame 408, and that's just extended that drawing to the end of the animation. So again, for the hills, very, very simple. So I'm going to add a few colours. I'll use a dark green. I'll adjust this again in a second. So the first hill, I kind of want to have like that. But before I do, I want to turn on snap, high snapping. So I can snap it back to the original location so that when I fill it, it'll all fill. Okay, and that's shown exactly one of the things I changed about the first background drawing, is I filled the background in white. So if you choose the fill tool and the first 0th colour, you can then fill it, which kind of removes any colour that's already there on screen. So that removes that fill that I put in before. So that's the first hill. Let's add the next one. I really want to go from the background to the foreground, so let me delete that. It'll just save time by going background to front first. The first thing we'll add is the sky. Again, I'll just slap in a blue. Let me choose the rectangle tool. Let's draw a sky here, and the fill for that will be a vector gradient fill. That's this one here, which is the linear gradient. So you select the linear gradient from the vector page, which sets it into the palette entry. You can then go back to the color tab, and then at the bottom of the color tab you see the two colors being used for that gradient. So I want one to be a light blue and the other one to be very similar, lighter blue, but we'll adjust that a bit more once we can see it on screen. So I'll pick two different colors, quite different there, and I'll just choose to fill it with that, and then go into the settings. I can choose change the rotation, so the angle, to make one of the colors at the top and bottom, so the gradient changes from the top of the screen down to the bottom, and that's about 90 degrees there. So let's just type in 90 rather than trying to adjust it by hand. You then increase the smoothness between the two colors, so there's a smoother gradation between the two. And now we can actually change the colours to match, and you can see on screen what colour you're actually going to get. And again, I don't want a massive difference between the colours, but I'd like a little bit, because it's easy to apply a gradient, so let's put a little bit on here. Hello there, Vuk. Welcome to the stream again. Welcome back. Glad to have you here. How you doing? So that's the basic colour for the sky. Again, we will adjust that a little bit later. It doesn't need to be too much in our face. I think what I'd do is I'll either bring down the alpha or bring down just the saturation of each of the colours, so they're both quite pale on there. Okay, so let's add in the first hill. So again, grabbing the normal brush with snap turned on and set to high. I want to have a hill here, one to the right and one over the middle. So let's create the one over the middle first. And again, let it snap back to the first place, and I can fill that in. But to fill it in, again, I could use the linear gradient and fill that in. And you can see the blue outline of the outline, the line I first drew. We can remove that with the selection tool, clicking again the 0th colour, which is invisible, and then select the line, click 0, and that outline disappears, leaving just the gradient fill, which again, I'll change the settings of the angle down to 90 degrees. I'll increase the smoothness between the two colours, and then we'll pick two colours here that's quite pale. And I will adjust these a bit more later on. And that's quite high, so I'm just going to move that downwards, and we will adjust these a bit more as we go ahead. Let's add the second hill now. I can actually delete that blue line because I'm not using it here, just to reduce the number of colours. And I use this bright blue colour, which is not really shown on screen, so let's make it purple so it really stands out as a colour we're not going to view. Grabbing the brush tool, let's draw the hill on this side. And again, just connect that up, add a new entry, make it linear gradient, fill this, undo that a second, fill that in. So let's just get the selection tool, make sure that's brought to the very front. That's just on the very front here. Group that, it wasn't grouped, I don't believe. So grabbing the brush, I thought grouping was an option up here. So let's try again with the fill tool. That now fills that completely. Okay, so again, settings, make it 90 degrees, so we're going horizontally. Pick a couple of colours, which we will adjust again. So green to another green. Selection tool, select the line, press the 0 colour, and that removes that outline there. And then finally a hill on the left. So again, draw that around there. In fact, let's make sure we've got one of the colours and connect that up. Add a new colour. From the vector section, choose the gradient and fill that in. Selection tool, select the line, 0th palette entry to remove the line, and then we can just adjust that colour. And we'll adjust all three colours here at the same time. Let me grab the selection tool on this and just rotate that a little bit. Just to make sure it's covering up that small gap there. I've not turned on the gap checker, Rover, so I'm not sure which pink lines you mean. I'm going quite quickly, so maybe I've missed the ones that you're referring to. We turn on the control point editor, and then make sure this spreads down here, and that's not filled fully again. I wonder if that's because it needs grouping as its own colour, its own group of lines. So I'll select the object, right click and choose group, and now the fill colour appears in all of that, which is a lot better. Settings, set that to 90 degrees, and again let's adjust those two colours, green to green. Right, so we've got 3 mountains, all using the gradient, and then a pale blue sky. That was really all I wanted to do for this background, so I'll adjust the colours and try and get them fitting, and then we'll play it through, see how that looks. I'll take a quick break then, and then we'll come back and do the larger view afterwards. So let me grab the selection tool first, or actually the control point editor might be better, to adjust the position of where these hills are, because again this is still quite large, this one. So I'm going to adjust this, delete some of these points, remembering to hit save regularly. And I'm back. Okay, so click and hold on the control points and press the delete key, which should remove them. There we go. Bring that one down. Click and hold to select it, remove the pen, and then tap delete. That's right. So let's adjust this hill so it's just peeking over the top there in the background. Okay, so there's the 3 colours for the 3 hills and the one in blue for the sky. So let me just adjust those colours to try and create kind of the effect that I wanted. As I said, I wanted a pale background, potentially almost black and white. I was thinking like a grey and white, a bit like you get for animatics or storyboards. But it's nice to put a bit of colour in there, so just a paler colour. So starting at the front, let's have a look at these colours. That's the front left hill there. Let me show just the camera view, and be able to see a lot easier what view we get. I may adjust them so they don't cross the head quite in that position, but let's get the colours right first. So what kind of green? It's kind of a bright green. We don't really want that. Sort of dark going to a sort of lime. So again, a bit more of a darker green. And the question is, I always forget which way around it should be. If you should go from lighter at the top to darker at the bottom, or darker at the top to lighter at the bottom. So if you have any thoughts on that, do let me know. But for now, I'm going to assume it's a little bit lighter at the top and darker at the bottom. So it's the first colour is the bottom. Make that darker. Make this one a little lighter, and then bring down the saturation to take out some of that colour from both of them. So I've got about 50 there. Let's come down to about 40 for both of these. Thank you, AP. That's what I was thinking. Atmospheric perspective, is it? And Techniconis is saying the opposite way around. But as you say, both work, yes. As long as there's some sort of gradient in there. But I seem to recall it being the opposite way to the way you'd think. And the way you'd think is, with the sun hitting it at the top, it'd be lighter at the top. But I'm sure it's the other way around. But I always forget. Let me keep going with this. This is quite a muted green here. I can't really see the gradient so much. I need to adjust the colour a little bit. I want it adjusted enough so you can see it is a gradient. We bring down the saturation to 30 for both of these rather than 40. That's quite pale for those. Let's look at the second colour, which is the one on the right hand side. It's quite a bright green, so again I want a different shade of green, but I don't want it to be that limey kind of green colour. So bring it over to the left hand side towards the blue a little bit. Again, a bit darker at the top. Sorry, darker at the bottom. Make it much darker there. It's lighter at the top, but let's bring down the saturation. So 40 for both of them, just so they're equally saturated, or equally not saturated. Julie Check, hello, welcome. Yes, thank you. Lots of tips there about saturation. Yes, I'll look at that. Yeah, so let's go to the background one and bring down saturation, see how that looks on the hill at the back there. I think they're still too high up on the screen, so I'll change that in a second. Let's go back to the furthest hill. So we're talking about a low saturation. Let's bring that down then to 20 for both of these colours. Okay. And I guess the hill at the back would need to be paler anyway. Yes, so we need it to be nearer the sky colour for the hill at the back. So again, keep moving this around the colour wheel, round towards the sort of the blue colour. So darker towards the bottoms I've been doing to add a bit of gradient. Light at the top, and let's just keep adjusting this, see what we've got. So lower saturation as well, which makes them a little bit nearer the grey colouring. Yes. Let me adjust the size of them as well. They're still too high, I think, too much in my face. So let's change those. In fact, use the selection tool and just bring this down. I thought about using alpha, but I need to make sure I have something behind it. For the sky, you're right, that could be a useful way to make the hill blend in with the sky a little bit. So that's quite interesting. For an experiment, I brought the alpha of both colours down to 0, and it makes it kind of a bright green. Like sort of meet in the middle there. Okay. Yeah, please. You can do, but I don't think you can post links in the chat here on YouTube. But if you want to post it in the Discord server, I'll take a look at that. Colour theory is something I've only got the briefest of knowledge on, so I'm more than happy to learn something about that. So yeah, if you want to post it in the Discord server, please do, and we'll take a look at what you've got, whether it be a reference or a page, web page that helps with that. I'll have a sip of tea while you do. Now ordinarily, I would paint some clouds in here. I think I still may do so. I have got the thought bubbles coming up, So let me throw some quick clouds on while you'll find that reference to share. So in front of the background wall, let me add a standard raster level. Name the column. And again, let me go to the last frame number, so it's frame 408. Right click, edit cell numbers, repeat to 408. I'm not going to animate these clouds in any way because it's just such a short clip that we're doing. Let me throw in a new palette entry. On the raster tab, we'll look for the cloud brush, which is pretty good as I recall. Let's just find where it is in here. There we are. I knew it was near the top, just called clouds. And in colours, let's just choose white first. Jose, good morning. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing today? In fact, if I go to a grey colour first, it's for light grey first. Make this slightly larger. Ah, I see you've shared something actually, something in the Discord server, so we'll come back to that. And then go to a white. A little bit of this over the top. So I really don't have too much in the way of the background here. I'd like it to be quite muted. That might just be enough. Let's take a look in the Discord then, see what we've got. Not Zelda. Yes, I thought about blurring the background a little bit as well. Yes, okay, I can see that. Let me bring that into the screen so everybody else can see. So this is the background that Alan shared from one of his videos, with the grass going paler each time to the background, also looking a bit blurred, as you say there. I've added all my hills on the same level in the same column, so I can't add a different blur to each of the hills, which would have been better to do so, but I might throw a bit of blur on there anyway. It won't do any harm because it is the background. So let me pop that up here. Thank you for sharing that. And with that in mind, let's take a look. So yeah, I've gone far too light with this front hill. Yes, I see the clouds have kind of got a lot of blue coming through from the sky there on your image, with a taller one at the back. Yeah, I do like having a bit of blur now. I'll probably do that for this one. Let's go back to these hills again then. And select on them. Let's see what we can do. So you've got, yeah, obviously darker there. This is, looking at it now, stands out as being far too light. I don't know what was going off there. So let's look back at this colour. And again, it's one of the benefits of using vector levels, all the Toonz raster levels. You can change the colour after you've painted it on screen, so it's easier to see the colours relative to everything else. And I really do want it to sort of disappear into the background, so I want the character to be standing out, so I really need to bring down that colour a lot for this. So I've gone quite bright here. Let me just grab the top colour, which is very bright. Find a deeper version, and I will just feel around the colour wheel and see what I can see on this. So do bear with me as I do. So that's quite deep. Now change the saturation afterwards. So let's bring that down. And say I want to lose a lot of the colour. So if I bring that to 40, if I do 40, 30, 20, see how that goes. Make this dark at the bottom. So we can see that gradient there. Actually, black isn't too bad having for that one. Let's go back one. Oh, there's nothing worse than when you're watching a stream and it starts buffering. And I found it very frustrating when Dave from Blender Planet had issues with his internet and it kept buffering. That was really frustrating to watch. But now he's got that sorted, thankfully. So hopefully it'll improve a little bit. If not, I can only apologise if it's anything from my end. That's quite dark. Let's make it a little bit lighter. And less colourful here. Okay, let's go to the next one at the right hand side. Let's go to the peak first, the lighter colour. I'm looking here, they are going around towards the blue, which is what I wanted for that. So bring that down to 30 for these. And then the one right at the back, I've got it right on the blue there. Just check. Yeah, that's the top one. A little bit darker. And then the same for this one. I'm just comparing the two. Down saturation so there's less colour in there. Okay, let me just try throwing on that blur as we were talking about before. Let's go to the schematic with the FX schematic, and it's the hills and clouds I want the blur on. So I will just add that onto those. Yeah, there's nothing else plugged in. So if I make sure I hit save first, go to the hills, insert effect, blur, blur, bring it down to something low first and preview that. So 2, let's try 5. Yeah, it's just blurred the edges of the hills a little bit. Let's do the same for the clouds, and rather than adding it afresh, I'll select the blur node, release the stylus, press Ctrl C, click away to deselect, Ctrl V. And then holding Alt, I'll drag that into here to connect it to the clouds. And let's increase the blur on those. Even though they're kind of quite fluffy and blurry anyway, let's add a bit on there. That'll do just fine. So back to the drawing room, preview on. Adds that tiny bit of blur to those things, like that. So it's just the colours to work on, and the shape here of the back hill I'm not so keen on. So I'll keep adjusting this, or keep going with this. I do want it to look kind of hilly, coming up and kind of arching over a little bit. I kind of feel like it might be useful to add a little bit of a blur on the wall, even though it's very close to us. Let's just see how that looks. It does no harm to try it out. We find the background wall, bring it down here, connect that through to the blur and blur to the X sheet. delete the direct connection. Change this down to a low value, like 2 pixels. Again, preview. That's not too bad. As I say, I do want things to kind of fade into the background because of the not having sharp lines and the colours of them. That's a shame, Tetraconis. Sorry to hear that. That sounds really frustrating. Yeah, the stream is recorded, so if you want to catch up on the recording to see what I've done later and see how it turns out. But as you say, a few good suggestions coming through about delaying the stream, watching it a few seconds behind, lowering the resolution, which would mean there's less data coming down, so it might be better for you. Let me take a look at the colours of the characters as well. They're very bright. I did want to change those. So let me go to the left character and we'll adjust his colours from bright blue shirt. Saturation is down there. Let me adjust the value so it's less bright. And then the right character is wearing kind of a pink shirt. So again, let's dull that down a little bit. The same for skin. It's quite reflective. Let's add a few more little marks on this wall here. Turn off the snapping. Pick the right colour so I've got the right grey in here. Just want to just kind of mess it up a little bit. On here and again around the edge. That's really annoying, Tetraconis. Yeah. It shouldn't still be buffering. It's at such a low resolution, or at least it shouldn't be buffering as much. Because if you go down one resolution spec, you kind of almost reducing the amount of network you need by a quarter or a third or even more. So I'm surprised that's doing that, but that's disappointing. Yeah, if you can stick around, great. It'd be good to have you with us, but if not, then you can catch the stream, as I say, the recording later if you want to. Now I'm tempted to mute the colours even more than this. Let me look at the sky actually. The sky is still quite bright. See if I can bring that down a little bit. So the lighter part here. Let's turn off the preview. And the brighter one. I don't want it to seem like an overcast day, but it's quite bright there. Okay, Rover259, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. See you next time. Okay. Let me take a look at that full screen on the preview, see how that looks with the background in.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds like
Leroy.
bat and man, right?
Yeah, but he didn't say them together.
Yeah, let me throw some more clouds in at the top there. Because as soon as you go to the larger view, it's even very low. Let's go to where there are no thought bubbles as well.
Something that resembles.
There, I can see better. Okay. It's 4:10 already. That's soon come round. Okay. Again, let's just throw something up here. Let me see where the raster level goes to actually by showing the bounding box. Right, that's what I thought. So let me erase that and make the raster level larger by right clicking and going to canvas size. There we are in edit image submenu. Let's make it larger in all directions, so do it relative and make it 500 wider and taller. No, more so. Edit image, canvas size, relative, another 500. Good, so I can paint now right up to the edge. Hunting Shadow, hello, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining us today. I don't think you've been around before. Is this your first time popping in? So let's see if we can paint that up here. A bit of grey first and then a little bit of white just over the top. Like that, and again over the side. And a tiny bit of white again, just over the top. It's going to be blurred anyway, so you're not going to see much of the detail, but just adds a bit of background interest on here. Preview, that's fine, just to get a little bit of cloud in there. Thank you, Alan, thank you for dropping by, I appreciate that. Hopefully see you again soon. You look after yourself. Alright, bye for now. Extend this outside of the scene because it was quite aimed at where the camera was at the very beginning. Yeah, of course, Hunting Shadow. What's on your mind? What I might try and do, just while Hunting's typing a message there, let me try and throw a cloud over the hills. So a bit of grey here. See what happens if I do that. With that. Undo that, so it's a greyer grey. Not quite, it's not quite working. Undo that back to where I was. Fine, hit save. Okay. Yeah, I'm always happy to hear requests, whether it be about actual content for videos or styles of videos to create or live streams, whether it be about the actual things I'm drawing, the talking about, the features or what have you. I can't always honour all requests, but I can certainly hear them. Always happy to hear them. Okay, so I'm looking back at the image that Alan shared with us earlier, and the sky he's got in reverse with dark at the top and lighter at the bottom, and I think that's probably correct, and I think I've got them the wrong way round. So let me change that. If I go to the background of the hills and look at the sky colours again, is that one. So the top one I've got as a lighter colour. Let's make that darker, a bit more blue. I'll make the lower colour a bit lighter. Okay, that's roughly the same. Let me change the lower colour now. A lighter colour of the same sort of shade there. And top one, add a bit more blue into that. So yeah, using these gradients, linear gradients for vector levels, are really useful to not have a flat colour and to allow you to adjust them easier. So if you look in the vector grouping, and it's this one here, if you can see my arrow, so it's the fourth from the left on the bottom row is the the linear gradient. The next one to the right is also useful, the radial gradient. If you've got more of a curve like I have for the hills, so the colour will curve around with it, but it does work on an exact circle. So if you've got an oval shape, as I have for these hills, you'll kind of see the circle gradient pattern. So it might not be as useful for these sorts of shapes. If you've got a circle like a sun to draw in there, a wheel, a ball, or what have you, that's a really useful one to use. Change back to the colour so I can see it. So Hunting Shadows asking a question here, how to rotate the camera for more dynamic action scenes. As with a lot of things in OpenToonz, there's many ways to achieve a certain effect that you're after. Let me just save that before I do anything. If we go back to frame 1. The easiest way is to go into the camera column at the bottom here, so the bottommost there, the bottommost column in the timeline view, and if you go to the first frame and choose the animate tool at the top of the page there, and you can simply choose to use the rotation or position and the other options there to change the camera. So if I choose rotation, I can start off on frame 1 and go to the table view on the viewer at the top there is the best way to edit this. Let's zoom out slightly. So I can go to frame 1 and I can rotate the camera that way. Make sure we're viewing the camera box so we can see the red box here, the red dotted box showing where the camera will be. And then you can go to a later frame, rotate it back the other way, move again, rotate it again. You can just do that as a simple way to create some rotation between those frames. And if you go to the camera view to sort of preview it and press play, let me turn off the audio. You can see that you've got the rotation happening. So if you've got an explosion and things are moving, then you want this to move quite quickly. So perhaps over 2 or 3 frames. So let me just move those keys if I can. Sometimes it doesn't grab with the pointer, you have to use the mouse. No, it's not taking it, so see if I can just delete them and I'll re-add them fresh. It's the best way. I'm going to restart OpenToonz to make sure that's working okay. But yeah, just change the rotation over every few frames to add that bit of an explosion sort of style movement in there. Really easy to add. So it's not letting me delete those, which is really annoying. I had this before, it's a bit of a bug with this. So I'll select all the keys in this column and then press delete. No, that's not changed it yet. What about through the horizontal axis? Thank you, Tom. We try again. Yay! That's all it was. I thought it gone mentally wrong then. So if you go over 2 or 3 frames, I will try again with this. Animate tool in rotation mode. And then move 1, 2, 3. And every few frames. Like that. And now if I turn in the camera view and hit play,
You saw Batman?
you get that shake.
You saw Batman?
So it's pretty easy to add a very simple shake into there. And you said, what about through the horizontal axis? So exactly the same thing. So let me delete those keys. So first frame, again, take it out of the camera view on the viewer, go to the normal view. If you zoom out a little bit, it's easier. Change to the position option, and you can choose to lock any of these values so you don't accidentally change them. So if you want the camera to go left to right, we don't want it to go up and down, we'll lock the y-axis by putting the lock on next to the y value. Thank you, Tom. I'll take a look at that in a second. And then on frame 1, you can click and drag to the left, and then wherever you want the animation to go to, so let's go quite slowly, then move it to the right, and then between those frames, the camera will move over. So let me turn on the camera view and press play on that. And that's just to do a plain movement. But if you want the camera to shake left and right, then it's very simple again. You can just place it in one position on one frame, go to another frame, move it a little bit, back, move it a little bit, and just keep adjusting it on alternating directions every few frames. So when we play in the camera view mode, you see the shake from left to right, like that. So let me remove those keys. So that'll give you some idea of how to do it. As I say, that's the easy way, just adjust the keys directly in the camera column. There's other ways to change the animation, which I've actually done in this animation here, by having other columns act as adjustments for it, which is sometimes better to do to move the camera, but that's a simple way to work with it. Let me just take a look at the Discord server from Tommy shared something to take a look at. Right, thank you, Tom. A distracting tangent. Yeah. I think if I just lift the hills up a little bit, thank you, that'd be the best way. With the selection tool on the hills column. Actually, I'll rotate that a bit as well. And then just bring it up here. Does that solve it? Do we think? We'll take a look at that in a second. Let's put that up there. Again, let me do a full screen preview. It'll be easier to see. I don't know how many times I've previewed the animation to check different things. Ah, right. Yes, so that is just a if you draw a wide view of your background and move the camera horizontally is the view that you want, and I guess you're animating the character manually turning around. So for that, what you do is you move the background instead of the camera. So it's not the camera moving, it's the background. So I do it with the hills column, but whatever your background column is, choose the animate tool and again go to position mode, place them in one position, go later on into your animation and move them along quite fast to the other side. So if I go to the camera view, you see the background moving behind the character, and then you'll draw the character turning around, and it'll look like the camera is going around them. You can't actually move the camera around a hand-drawn character, but if you move the background quickly enough and hand-drawn the rotation, it looks like the camera is going around. I hope that helps. I'm guessing from your comments Eureka is a good thing, so I hope that helps you a lot for that. If you've got multiple columns as I have here for your background, you'll need to connect them together, so you only animate one of them to move them together, unless you want parallax and you want them to move at a different speed, then you'd animate them individually. So if I take the hills column for instance and go on to frame 1, place it at the far left of the camera, come later and move it to the right. I can do the same with the clouds, place them somewhere and then later on move them slower because of parallax, and then do the same with the wall. That'll move a lot quicker. That's actually moving the camera because I've got it connected to the background, so I can't do that. But basically you get the idea. As you then move through, the background and clouds would move at a different pace to the wall as he rotates there. So let me hit undo to remove these animation keys. So let me just see how this looks for the background, and I'm going to take a short break before I come back and decide what we're going to do to finish off today's stream. I'm tempted not to do what I originally planned, because that would take too long. I think I've been a bit too ambitious, but I'll have a think about it over the break. So this is what we have so far. Then we put the sound back on so I can hear what happens.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds like
right?
bat and man, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say them together.
So I'm looking right now at the background to whether it stands out too much. The sky is very deep blue. I might want to turn that down a little bit. At this angle it's not too bad, but being lighter. I think I'll make it just a little bit lighter for both blues, and that might be better. That might work out better.
It wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds like bat and man, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say them together.
And the wall, although it's very pale, it's mixing quite a lot with the character on the right. So I might need to change his outfit maybe. We'll see. But I'm going to come back and take a look at this in a second. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break, stretch my legs. You do the same, stretch your legs, grab yourself a fresh cup of tea, and then we'll come back and see what we can do to finish off this little animation. 3 weeks in. And are you considering doing turnarounds with cameras already? Whoa, slow down, slow down. No, I hope it's going well. And please do, if you're not already, join the Discord server and start sharing some of your animations. Let us all take a look at them. Feel free to ask for any critique. If there's any areas you want to improve on or to get some advice about, we can help you with that over there. And also, any art and animation that you share may also be shared on the live streams with the rest of the community here, as you're about to see in a few minutes. So I'll take a break and I'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. See you then. And welcome back. Let me just turn down the music a little bit for you. I think that's about there now. Good. Okay. Thanks to everyone who shared their art that I shared during the kitchen there, especially Double O, who shared a nice ghosty Happy Halloween animation. Really appreciate that you're creating that for us. Katapa Mama, hello, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining us today. Great to have a new person with us again. Hope you're doing well. So you join us at the end of this animation. We're almost there. And I've kind of decided not to add a pre-drawing. I was going to add a static image from a distance first before this animation to kind of set the scene of where we are, but I think it would take too long to draw, not really got enough time, and we don't need it as part of this animation. Even drawing this background is probably a little bit too much for what we actually need, but I'll continue anyway, just finish off the background as it is. So the last thing I want to do really is to make the battlements a little bit neater than they are, add a tiny bit of perspective because they're very, very flat, and then we'll submit the animation. I've already submitted a first draft to the 11-second club, so that's just waiting for me to update the thumbnail and the video, which is really easy to do once you've submitted your first entry. So it's worth submitting early to make sure you've got something submitted, and it also makes it easier to submit further improvements. You just need to replace the video file. So let's just tidy this last piece up then. So I want to change the colour of the battlements. They're very light. I want to make them a little bit darker, I think, here. Let's make that a bit darker and then make the outline a bit darker too, so it's still visible. Also want to see where that goes larger. Yeah, I want to add some dimensionality to it. So there's a few ways you could do this. I think what I'll do, rather than trying to work with vector levels, which are a bit tricky to do, I'll add in between the wall and the hills level, I'll add a Toonz raster. Let me just name the column so I don't lose track of where we are. So this is the BG walls what would I call this? It was a perfect place, Double O. I was thinking where to put things today. I was thinking that's a perfect place to go in the window frame. It'll pop into there. And I'm so frustrated that I didn't get time this week. I was hoping to have an evening or two to do something Halloweeny for today. But thank you for sharing that. It fits a place perfectly. Okay, so this is the walls 2. I can't think of what to call it, to be honest. Let's just call it that. Make sure I'm saved. And now it's saved, I go back to my backup tool. I will add a backup name so I don't lose track of where we are. So this is with the background almost complete. And then hit make a copy. And then I'll have a copy of that named so I know exactly where I am to roll back to if necessary. Let's extend this, so 408. So again, put the drawing on frame 1, right click, edit cell numbers, repeat up to frame 408, so that'll go right to the end. And then we can just try and paint a bit of dimensionality to this. Is what I want to do. So let me throw in a couple of greys. So we've got a darkish grey first. In fact, I can pick the same colour. So let me go to the RGB colour picker and pick the same outline as that. Add a second palette entry. I can use the same colour as that, but I don't know if I really want to. So let's just store it in place just in case. Grab the brush. So I just want to add a little bit of side to this. Chiziapo, hello, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining us. Good to have you here. I'm trying to imagine the camera view, so thinking as a 1 point perspective, the camera view is in the middle of the screen here. So start off with this. You want to see the insides of both of those two walls there. But I see, because of the grey line, the size I've given isn't big enough. So let me resize this frame, this drawing level, so I can draw outside of that area. So I go to right click and then canvas size, relative, and I'll make it just lots bigger. So 1000 wider and 1000 higher. And now the grey line is a lot wider and I can fill in wherever I need to. So we're looking down, so really we'd see the top of this as well, like that. So let me just draw which parts of the wall we can see. So if I just show only the wall first, so right click on the viewing button and choose to show this only, and then show wall 2. So I've only got those two levels, or those two columns shown. And I can move along and choose what we see. So I'm going to do this by eye. We're always going to see that base. I'll draw a line there. That's fine for that. Just see the base, and then on the left we see the left hand side of that and the base, and the same here. See a little bit more of the left and then the base, like that. Okay, and then we can grab this colour and we can fill in. Oh, let's use the paintbrush because I haven't drawn the whole of that area to fill in because we're on two different levels. So if I just grab the paintbrush is the best way. Make it slightly smaller and just manually paint in some colour here. Doesn't need to be perfect. So I'll just finish off this background today, and that'll be enough for this submission, I think. And then we'll submit it to the 11-second club, so you'll see that going in. And then that'll be it for this month's entry. I'd be really happy to get that part completed and get it submitted. It's been a long month. I've got a lot done and I've learnt a lot, I think. I've specifically learnt a lot about my workflow, what's working for me and how to work frame by frame, which is what I've been doing this month. So I'm going to add this in and then add a little bit of possibly a little bit of shading, I think, over the top. So probably only here for another half an hour maybe. So yeah, relatively short stream today, I think, to get this completed. Okay, bit of dimensionality in there. We could also, if we wanted to go to the darker colour, and then again go to a small size and add in a little bit of interest in here. Oh, that's not quite coloured in. I missed a bit there. I can see a dot. And the darker colour, just throwing some additional little lines here. To go a bit larger because the brush sizes aren't consistent between level types. Just adds a little bit of visual interest. It doesn't need to be the neatest thing, but it's just like something I've seen across all sorts of different cartoons, from The Simpsons to Rick and Morty, to have these extra little lines around the background, just to kind of give a bit of texture. kind of showing scuffs in the background there. And I'm no expert on them, but it's certainly worth attempting to put some in here. Like that. Okay, so that's all one plain colour now. So as I say, I want to add a bit of shading over the top of that. So I'll do that with a vector level, why not? So grab a vector level, drop that on top, and we'll call this BG Wall Shading. Okay, so again, we'll repeat that up to frame 408. And we're almost here. So we could do this in lots and lots of different ways. We could do it with just painting over with a brush or using the geometry tool. Doesn't really matter. I'll stick with using the black on here. Let me start with some of this. Looking at the inner wall space here, I kind of want it to be, imagine the light's coming from the left. So the right hand side of the walls is going to be light, but the left hand is going to be dark. So let me again use the pen tool with snapping turned on. I'll leave it at high. I love the size being quite small, so just put 1 in there so I can go exactly to where I need to. So we can just draw then along the lines. And then fill it in. And then change the alpha of the colour to be lower, or as I prefer to do, change the column opacity. You get a neater finish. Let me see how that looks. Need to move over here and turn on in the scene settings, enable column colour filter and transparency for rendering. So let's regenerate the frame preview for that. And now that's added that opacity in there, so let's make it a little bit darker. Okay, so if you use the control point editor, and I could adjust this to get exactly the points where they need to be. And so I don't know if using vector is necessarily the best way to go for this. I thought I'd see first how it worked, how well it worked, and then decide if it's a good thing to do or not. Yeah, it's a bit awkward doing that. I don't like that. I'm going to remove that. So let's remove that column entirely. I'm not going to use that at all. Let's go back to the walls 2, which is sitting behind the standard walls level. And I'm going to add a darker colour for the shading and paint it directly onto the image there. So let's make this even darker. Need to be a smaller size to make sure I can get into the corners. Let's see how this looks with this version. Again, going to the middle frame, middle of the animation. Again, I don't want it to be distracting, but it needs to be in there. Lock Alpha, possibly. Yes, Tom. Yes, could be better to do that. I'm still deciding as to whether I need it or not, if it looks any better. Or if it's best just to leave it as it is. Let me undo that, and I realise at the right hand side I've not got the rest of this wall painted in. So let's do that first. I was counting the sort of the sun to the left hand side, but behind the wall, so the light was coming towards us, the other side of the wall, but then that was kind of put the characters in the dark. So really the sun needs to be behind us. So you're kind of hinting at possibly there. I don't know if I need to do anything with this shadow. I might just fill this in and leave it as it is. It's a shame you didn't get time to enter this month, Tom, to see what you'd have done with this. I don't know if you had any thoughts already about what you would have done, the characters, the situation, and so on. Don't forget to keep hitting save. Can't save enough. No Maria today, unfortunately. Busy bee today. Lots happening for her at the minute. It's a bit too mad. So I'm just going to straighten this up a little bit. Drop a line down to help me see where I'm going to go. Doesn't need to be too straight, but let's get it at least close. Okay, so let me take the lighter colour and make that a little bit darker in there, and take the dark colour and make that more dark as well, so you can see that. Delete that colour I'm not using anymore, and let me adjust the colours directly on here to add the shadow part really to the battlements. I think that might work better. So let me show all the columns so I can see it in context with the background as well, and I can keep making that darker, I think. Yeah. So Awkward Penguin says if he did it, it would be either going to be a criminal report with the person who draws the likeness. That'd be good. To be trying to draw the Batman or a Batman, or the Rorschach test. Yeah, with the splodgers. Where you're trying to figure out what shape it kind of is. Yeah. Oh, where was you a month ago when I was trying to find ideas? Yeah, they're pretty good. It was a weird one this month. It was a strange one. because the two characters are arguing but basically saying the same thing. So it's a strange one to find, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what other people have worked on, which I'll be doing next Saturday. So as I said earlier, if you can join me next Saturday, we'll be taking a look at some of the entries. If there's still time, hopefully we'll be able to do some marking of them. If not, we'll just take a look through them anyway and see what other people have been working on and what ideas they had. I just want to bring the sky down a little bit. It still seems a bit too bright for me. So let me change the value of these two blues. So the darker blue at the top, a little bit less saturation of the blue, and then the bottom one the same thing, which makes it slightly lighter again. I'm not entirely sure I'm happy with the two outfits of the people. So I'm just fiddling at the minute now, just finishing off the final few pieces. I want to complete this now on the stream and submit it and not look at it again. Otherwise I'll be tempted to go back and change things and improve things. So I don't want to keep tweaking with it. So all the tweaking is going to be done here today. So the left character is wearing kind of a blue top. Now let me hit save before we go any further. Should that be a deeper blue, or at least a darker colour? And the character on the right kind of got a pink top. So again, should that be a darker colour, just to make them stand out a bit more from the background? I'm thinking so. Yeah. And let me go to the schematic, where I added some blur for the background, and let me make sure I've included all the elements in that blur there. So I've got the new background walls 2 and background wall both going into that blur. So let me add a layer blending over node and plug the wall and the walls 2 into that, and then plug that into the blur, so both walls have got the same blur amount on them. Yeah, that's good. The hills are in there, and so are the clouds. So the question for me is, do I want to change the value of any of these? I've got 3 pixels on the wall. Let's make it 4. That's okay, it's blurred enough. Yeah, for me, Tom, yes. I think it would make a nice... It could make the characters pop out and look a bit nicer with the extra highlight and shadow. Yeah, exactly. It's all based on staging, expression, timing, animation of the characters. But I've pushed it further than I should do, really. I wanted a basic background, and I've gone a bit too far, a bit further than I planned. But because I needed to have the background behind the characters, I had to fill in the characters and colour them in with something. And I was going to colour them in just with like a grey wash, but I've put a bit of colour in there. This is why I've kept the tone down, so it's not as bright. So I don't really want to add any more to them. I just want to kind of try and tone things down a little bit here if I can. Let me look at the hills. Let me make those a little bit more blurred. Let's try 10. 15? That's too much. 10. That's very blurred. The clouds, fairly blurry anyway, because they're kind of the brush I use. So I might leave that as is there. Let me just skip through to the larger view, because really we want to see the two characters and the two thought bubbles are the main things to look at. So the background needs to be literally the background in the back there. So I think unless there's any suggestions, I might leave it as that. Let me preview it again, full screen. Let's see how that looks. I did think about putting a like a grayscale over the top, or either putting all the columns through a grayscale filter. Might take a look at that in a second, see if that helps. with the kind of colouring I wanted to get. So let's play this through and just see how the characters stand out from the background.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds like
boy.
Bat and Man, right?
Yeah, but he didn't say them together.
Okay, that's not too bad. Let me try that colour thing I was talking about. Actually, it would have been quite nice, AP, to have had Halloween involved in this entry with the time of year that the submissions go in. You could have had someone dressed as Batman in some way at a Halloween party, maybe. Yeah, that could have worked. Okay, so I had an idea of trying to bring down the colour, and you can do that in a video editor if you want to render from OpenToonz and then add it to a video editor to apply other effects and things. But you can do quite a lot in OpenToonz direct. And one thing you can do if you want to apply an effect to the whole scene is to add the effect in the effect schematic after the X sheet before the output. So the X sheet node here is really a way to collect all of the outputs that you may have added effects to or not, to show them in the order shown on the X sheet, which is why it's called X sheet. And that can change depending on the effects you've added. So the over node, for instance, allows you to swap which column is presented over another one. But generally, it's the order of the X sheet that comes through here. So if you want to add an effect, there's one place you can put it here without having to change any other effects elsewhere. So if I make sure I've hit save before going any further, right click on the X sheet, choose insert effect. Now I can adjust the levels, the brightness or what have you of everything at the same time. So you can adjust it separately by adding an effect to a column, but doing it here adds it to everything. So let me just tone it down, the colour, and see if that affects it. You've got lots of options to change here. The curves maybe, adjust levels, exposure, and maybe the brightness. Let's start with the exposure. And let me see how that looks. Turn on the preview. And let's just start dragging these handles around and see what happens to the output. So that's a small bit of hardness. Increase it. And that doesn't seem to change anything. Change the scale. Because everything is quite light anyway, so this could affect it in a different way than if you had lots of bright colours. And then the offset. You see the colours of the hills changing there. Let's go upwards. And this is the best thing to do to learn the effects, is just to plug them in and try them out on your scene. See what it does to the output. No, for me that's not working, so I will remove that. And let's add another one. Image adjust. Let's look at the curves. So we can change individually the red, green, blue and alpha. The red, green, blue and alpha. It's not the alpha I want to change. Let me try the red, green and blue. You can see a histogram at the bottom here. I've had a little play with the curves before and I struggled to get it to work as I wanted to. So let's just start bringing things down, because it is the tone of the colour I want to change, not the brightness. So I don't know if the curves is necessarily the best one to change. That makes it darker. That adds more colour, so let's bring the dark area back to the left. See if that removes colour. So again, I'm just going to play with the handles and see what happens. No, again, that's not working for me. I'm sure some people can make it work for what they need to do with it. So let me just keep going. Adjust levels. So just the levels of the input. Yeah, I've changed this before. So you're looking at the individual colours of either red, green, blue and alpha, or all of them together, which is what I want. You may just want to change the reds or the blues, but I want to kind of bring them all down. So whatever the input is, that's the colours it'll affect. So if you only want to affect the lower colours, you bring that down, and only the lower colours will change. But it's actually all of them that I want to change. Let me just bring down the output of those RGB. And I'll just keep adjusting them, because I don't want to go darker. It's less of the colour that I want. So if I bring down the blue and then the green, yeah, it just keeps getting darker. So I don't know if necessarily this is the best way to do it. Again, I'm just going to keep playing with them. Saturation, that could be really what I want to aim for. Yeah, I'll just try and see if I can remove the colour a little bit, still keeping it as bright as it was. HLS, which is hue, lightness, saturation adjustment. You can add a reference in here, you can just adjust it. Let me just try moving these. Yeah, I'm not great, awkward penguin, as you can see here. But again, you won't be great unless you experiment. So this is what I'm doing now, just trying to have a play, see what happens. So I want to decrease the amount of saturation. I'm not sure the best way to do that. I think you do need a reference image for that, which isn't what I want to add in. Auto. Yeah, okay. Again, needs a reference for this one, but let's just drop it in and see what we get. Red, green, blue, alpha. Red, green and blue. Bring them all down. It goes darker. I don't want it darker. So many. Absolutely, Dom. Absolutely. It's one of these things, I think, that once you find the right nodes, you'll keep using them again and again. Multitone, negate, RGBA, cut, fade or scale. Have a look at the other ones. Layer blending. That's to blend different levels together. Light. No, specific light effects. I'll go through some of these. No. Stylized. No. It's not really a Toonz thing. I think it is the image adjust. What I want to achieve, Jose, I want to see if I can use an effect to bring down the saturation of all the colours across all the columns. I can do it individually. I can go to each level and adjust the columns individually, but I was seeing if I could use an effect. In effect, I kind of want to see a gradient range. I don't know if any of you have done this before, to go from full colour through to grayscale, and to find a level across there onto a very low bit of colour to see how it looks, to compare it with this version here. So is there something in here for that? That's the scale that I did before. So feel free to suggest anything if you know which of these nodes should be able to do that effect. RGBA, auto. Okay, that's not helping. Potentially, I'd hope to be an effect though to bring down just the colours without changing the brightness, and I'm sure there would be once you'd work through them. This one here we've got a reference. Yeah, kind of. I'd like the characters to pop. Really, it's the background that I want to change. So maybe I do need to just go in and adjust the colours individually. I was hoping to just throw a node over the whole scene to bring it down. Let me try and adjust the sky and the hills. So before I do anything, again, I'm going to take a copy, or at least name a backup. So it's complete, but before colour adjustment. So I can roll back to this any time. So if something goes wrong or I just change my mind, I can easily get back to this view. The other way I can do it is I've hit save, so I can always just go to the file, revert scene to get back to this version if I don't save in between. So let's try and make the sky colour a little bit dimmer. So blue sky here, I could bring down saturation from 20 to 10, and that one is up here. Let's bring that down as well, halfway to 20. Let's go to the same for the hills. So for each of the colours, bring them down . Just reading through the comments up here. A layer with a gradient from full colour to grey and then a blend mode set to saturation. That could work. But it's not a gradient I want necessarily, it is just kind of an overall toning down. I think I'll stick with what I'm doing here, to be honest, Tom. And Jose, thank you. Harmonising a little bit the character colours with the green background. Yeah, I want to take the colour out of the background really, it was a bit too bright in my face. Let me change these hills, holding control and reorder the colours to get them in the right order. There's, that's the front hill. Just double check, that's black. We go that to red. Yeah, that's the front hill, the medium hill, and then the back. Let me just change the medium one a little bit. So there's more colour at the front, less at the back, and even less at the very back. Yes, sorry Tom, yeah, as an adjustment range, exactly. So I kind of expect, or would like, ideally a node that has a single slider, or slider for hue, saturation, lightness, that goes from kind of black and white to full colour, from grayscale to full colour is what I'm after. And I'm sure you can with the nodes that's there, really sure you can. You just need to take some time with them. But if you used, as you say, a blend mode with an overlay colour, that could work potentially as well. But I'm happy by doing this. This is kind of the view I wanted. Less colour in the background, enough to see what's there, but not bright to take away from what's happening. I'm thinking we might be just about there. Let's go to that middle colour. Needs a bit less, a bit less. Let's change the colours between the front and mid hills. That's right. Yes, I saw in the context menu you can do it over a whole level. Actually, you're right there. If you right click, well, that's on a standard raster level. On a standard raster level, edit image. You can adjust the levels here under brightness, contrast, etc. But not in a Toonz raster level. There is the widget, of course, for adjusting some colours. The palette gizmo. There's the palette gizmo to shift the values around, but again, that's one level at a time, or even one colour at a time. So I wouldn't be touching that. Again, let me preview it full screen. It's always a lot easier to see on full screen. Yeah, very, very muted colours back there.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds
Leroy.
like Bat and Man, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say them together.
One last little thing, I keep saying one last little thing, but one last little thing I'd like to change is I noticed that when the cloud moved on the left for the Batman bumping off the other one, let me come over here. So the left bubble, zoom out a little bit, it'll be easy to see. Here we are. So the left cloud comes up, bumps the right cloud, goes backwards and then bumps that over. The left cloud goes backwards and bumps that, but then the second one, it just goes straight forward. So I think what I'd like is a small step backwards first. So let me add an animation key here. Then in between, bring it back again, just so we've got a bit of movement before push that over. Yeah, that's something that was missing there. Good. I am going to render that and let's submit it as my final entry. So output settings, frames 1 to 408, shrink value of 3 because we don't need to upload a full HD video into the 11-second club. I've got the right name, it's an MP4, hit render. And then I'll watch that on my local computer, make sure that's okay, and then it's going in. I think I could fiddle with this all day and I don't want to do that. We need to submit it at some point. Okay, I've got all my other outputs here. So let's bring this window down of where it is. That's the one I've just rendered. So let's open that.
You saw Batman?
And obviously that opens on a separate screen. So let me bring that down here. As I say, I rendered it to 1/3 of the size, so it's going to look a bit blurry on a full screen like this.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds
Leroy.
like Bat and Man, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say them together.
Perfect, that'll do. Everything fits. I don't think I missed anything there I wanted to change. So we'll submit that. I do need a thumbnail for this. So let's find a frame, go to the camera view, a frame that sort of covers everything, that makes it look clear of what the video is. Enough to intrigue people and just to be a representation of the video, and the one I used when I first uploaded was when the two thought bubbles were in the air,
What I'm hearing is Batman.
and the character on the left was doing the Batman eyes shape, and the second one was angry. So that's frame number 216. So output settings, frame 216 to 216. No shrink, you want it full HD. It's got to be a JPEG, not a PNG for the thumbnail. Enyo-san, hello, welcome. Just joining us at the end, we're finishing off now. Complete, done. I'm just checking it in. So I'll play it again in a second so you can take a quick look. Just rendering the an image for the thumbnail. Thank you, Jose. I may have added too much by putting the thought clouds in, I'm not sure. It's an idea we had a couple of weeks ago that was expanded by Maria, suggesting that the clouds could be kind of fighting each other along with the argument. So it could be a bit too much. I've thrown everything at this animation, but we'll see how it goes when the judging happens. Okay, so render that out as a JPEG. Done. So now let me go to the 11 Second Club site. I'm logged in. Let me just change that. Okay, so here we are. So I'm logged in, let's click the enter button. I've already entered, so it's got my last entry details in here. The words I've already typed in, so again, if you check in your entry sooner, you can fill out the form, and then the second time round to just update it, you just need to update the thumbnail and the video. So let's go to the thumbnail I've just added. So that's this JPEG with the latest dates. Add that. Browse to the video file. Everything else is set up, so click enter. Then wait for the page to upload it and then reload. Thank you, Jose, and I agree with you entirely. That as soon as I had the clouds appear and started moving, that was during this week I completed those. Your eyes immediately go up to those and you miss out on the characters moving. So I'm interested in what people say when they view it and mark it, whether it's too much moving at once or not. But it's one of those things that once I had the idea, I couldn't not do. So it's in there. So let me hit play from here to check it's all playing okay. For those of you that are entering yourself, as it says at the top here, you've got 1 day, 11 hours to go. So still plenty of time to finish off your animations.
You saw Batman?
No, not Batman. It was like something that resembled a bat, but like big, like a man.
What I'm hearing is Batman.
No, it wasn't Batman.
Well, it sounds like
boy.
Bat and Man, right?
Yeah, but you didn't say them together.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the clouds are too much. It would have worked without them. But it's an idea I had that I wanted to put in there. So I'll leave that in. Submitted. Entry done for October. I'm happy. Very happy with that. So with that, I'm going to call the stream to an end. Thank you, Enyo. Appreciate that. I'm intrigued on how it gets judged by other people in the comments that come through. But I'm really happy with what I've done and with what I've learned from doing this animation. So it's been fun to do. Really happy it's got to here. It feels that way to me, Tom, and I'm feeling more comfortable with what I'm doing. For the next one, I've already kind of been considering where I'm going next, because each time I've entered, I've tried to pick an area to improve on. Next time, I'd quite like to have a more interesting looking character. Possibly as an animal, maybe. And again, as I tried to do with this one, add a bit more three-dimensionality, have them moving around a little bit more maybe. But we'll see when we come to that in the new year what we do. Yeah, thank you, Jose. Appreciate that. We'll see what happens. As I say, when it gets judged, there'll be the judging for the scores, the comments from people for the entry, and also, as I said at the start of the stream, Ferdinand from Animator Ireland normally does a monthly review stream where he takes a look at the entries from the previous month competition, and usually starting at the top of the list, and comments on what was good, what was bad, and what he'd do differently. But if you catch it live, he'll also take a look at your entry and comment on that. So I'm kind of more interested in what he's got to say than what kind of other people have to say that are judging the entries. So the score's not that important, but I'd like to not get a lower score than last time. But we'll see what happens. That's out of my hands now. I'm happy with what I've got. So I'm going to call that the end of the stream. So thank you for joining me today. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you'll be able to join in a little bit in the chat, those of you that wanted to. As I say, next weekend I'm not here on Sunday. I'm away for the day, but I'm back on Saturday, and I'll take a look at some of the entries from the 11-second club. So we'll see next weekend what other people have done for the competition. So thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next Saturday, same time, 3 p.m. UK time. So I hope you can join me then. So have a great rest of your day, a great week, and I'll see you next weekend. And that's a Darren Tea. Have you always wanted to animate but didn't know how to start, and software seemed expensive and difficult to use? Well, with OpenToonz, it's free, powerful, and once you know how, it's easy to use. And it's my mission to get you animating with it today. Hi, my name's Darren, and I've been teaching OpenToonz for the past 3 years, showing thousands of students just like you how easy it is to animate with. I'm cutting through the jargon to show that anyone can animate with it. And by the end of the course, you'll be able to animate traditionally using OpenToonz. And the course is designed for students brand new to OpenToonz, as well as those new to animation. So take a look at the free lessons I've offered below, and then why not sign up and join me animating traditionally with OpenToonz.